Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops in Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
And we are coming to you guys live right after the Pistons' really kind of fun win there against the Boston Celtics. They beat them 119-113. Started off kind of slow, but got a little bit more exciting as that game went on and progressed. But before we even get to that, Blake, happy 100 episodes, man.
Yeah, 100th episode today. Happy it comes. Like, this is the first time we're recording this season as we have real basketball to talk about. So, Happy 100th. It's been a fun ride, wild ride. We've been through the ups and downs. We started like at the biggest down, I'd say, for the 14-win season, but now we're climbing up. So, yeah. It's awesome.
Nothing like starting a new podcast and immediately covering a 28-game losing streak. But hey, you know what? We're on the other side of it now. The Pistons are fun. They're entertaining. I mean, honestly, I don't even think they played a fantastic game here against Boston, and they still find a way to pull out the win. You could probably say pretty similar against the Rockets as well. I don't think we've had through these first three games a like complete and 100% version of what a Pistons win can look like this season. So they've not hit that perfection yet, and that's to be expected, right? We're just 3 games in. So yeah, we're sitting here at 2-1. What do you think about the game here this afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, slow start, like you said, but the team bounced. Honestly, I thought where the game changed, it was the first subs when like Isaiah Stewart came in and he knocked down a couple threes, and he's had a really strong first few games, and I believe Holland came in with him too. I thought they just sort of brought the energy and flipped things around a bit, and obviously there was a big lead to work back from, and then Jalen Duren had a rough start, but the second half he was just pretty like getting to the line. He shot 13 free throws. He ended with 24 points and 17 rebounds. So it was nice to see him bounce back from that, and he was in some foul trouble as well. I think he picked up his 4th like pretty early in the 3rd, and he ended with 4 fouls. So he took himself out of the game at times, but it didn't matter in the end when he was really just going off and the Celtics didn't know what to do with him. So overall, I thought it was a strong game. It wasn't even the best Cade game, but like he ended with 25, 8, and 3. So it's still putting up those numbers, even though he wasn't as efficient from the field. He shot 8 for 18 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, which is nice. But yeah, I totally agree. It wasn't their best performance, but to get down, I believe the most was like 17 points and find a way to come back. I thought it was really like the energy that those bench guys brought in. Even Javonte Green put in some good minutes. And then the starters were able to find it later on to eventually pull out a win against this year, a Celtics team that you should beat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say, I think Isaiah Stewart might be the 3rd best player on this team. Like, I know he didn't put up an amazing stat line here against Boston, but that man's impact on the game is just through the roof. You feel his presence when he comes in. Ausar Thompson's so good defensively, so I can't say that he's their best defender, but he's their 2nd best defender on a team that also has Holland, who's playing out of his mind defensively as well for a second-year guy that's only 20 years old. So, I mean, I've just been so impressed with what we've seen out of Isaiah Stewart. I wish he played more than 21 minutes tonight. I mean, we're at that point already just 3 games into the season. Like, I don't really care how it happens. I'm not picky about it. I'm intrigued by doing the little bit of too big stuff that they go to every now and then against the Rockets here and then against the Celtics, just to get Stu out on the floor more, man. He's just been so good, and it's been so fun to watch. I'm hoping he stays healthy and can keep it up. So knock on wood there.
Yeah, really happy to see he's back shooting the 3. That's something we talked about a lot before the season. He already has 2 games where he's made 2 threes, and he made a 3 in his other game too, where he didn't do all of much offensively. I thought, like, I would have liked to see him play a little bit more. I thought he was he was really the key in having the Pistons like come back in the first half and eventually take the lead. And I think JB kind of used him in like just 2 long stints. And I thought maybe he came out, I want to say, with like 8 or 9 minutes left in the fourth. And I thought maybe he would be saving him in case Duran picked up his fifth foul or fouled out down the stretch. And then that didn't happen. And Duran was playing really well. So I think it might have been a product of that. But yeah, I guess that's like a good problem to have. And like Mimsy brings in the chat, JB was letting Jalen Duran work through his fouls because he had Isaiah Stewart, and we saw Paul Reed have a great game when Jalen Duran got ejected against the Houston Rockets in their first win of the season. So it's nice to have that problem, even though I would have liked to see Isaiah Stewart be closer to like 25 minutes as well.
Man, put him even up at 30. Like I said, at this point, I don't care. I don't care where or how he's getting them. Like, we're getting to the point with Stu where I know he only had one block here against the Celtics today, but he changed many more shots than that. And it's to the point where you're seeing like Peyton Pritchard pass on taking the floater because Isaiah Stewart's right in front of him, and instead trying to probe and find a kick out. And those don't show up in the box score, but man, is it impactful for a guy. I mean, by the way, Peyton Pritchard, nice game, 21 points. He had 10 rebounds for a guy his size. That's incredible. And 4 assists. So the fact that you could have a guy who's having that kind of night make a business decision offensively against Isaiah Stewart, who himself's only 6'8". Like, it's so fun to watch. The other guy I really wanted to shout out, how about Tobias Harris here today? He puts up 18 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists. He wasn't the best from 3, only 2 for 7, but 50% overall from the floor. I think he's just been really solid here through these first 3 games, Blake. And I mean, when you're looking at this roster, and there is still so much youth, right? And we've seen, I think, from game to game, a lot of variability with even guys like Duncan Robinson, right? You know, he was really cold in game 1, pretty hot in game 2, and then today against the Celtics, he goes 2 for 7 from 3. So kind of a rougher afternoon for Robinson there as well. So the fact that there's been that variability to be able to turn to Tobias Harris and the consistency he's been able to bring, I think that's another guy that, yes, he played 35 minutes. You probably could argue he should have played even more than that as well, just for the steady hand and veteran presence he's been providing for the team, I think.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find the play right now, but he made that big tip in pretty late in the game. I believe it was off a Cade miss, and it just came at the right time, and sort of, it wasn't the dagger, but it sort of felt like one. So he's just been big as well, especially today against the Celtics. And he brings the team everything that they need, especially when your other vets are Karis LeVert and Duncan Robinson, who are coming in here for the first time and still getting used to it. Like we've seen with both of them, and Karis, we've only seen once. Or did Karis even play
just
today?
once? Yeah, he didn't play against the Celtics. He's still hurt.
I saw he was warming up, so I was confused. But yeah, we've only seen him.
I think he was a game time decision, if I remember right.
Yeah, we've only seen him once so far, and Duncan obviously had a rough season opener, had a solid game against the Rockets, and then hit or miss again against the Celtics. So I think Tobias is really the guy that he just has to be the glue guy outside of Cade, in terms of like veteran leadership and everything. And we saw everything he did last year. It seems like that's just continuing from here.
All right, last guy that we need to really shout out here before maybe talking about some just general takeaways from the first 3 games that we I guess we shouldn't say takeaways, right? It's just 3 games. So things that we're watching, right, as the season progresses. But how about Ausar Thompson?
Yeah, he's been great.
Let's just put it that way. How about Ausar Thompson? Right. Yeah. Here's the stat line, and then I want to get your thoughts on what we saw out of him here against the Celtics. 21 points, 3 assists, 12 rebounds, and 2 steals. He went 7 for 8 from the free throw line and 7 of 15 from the floor. How about Ausar Thompson?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that 7 for 8 from the free throw line might be the most, I don't want to say impressive, but maybe like beneficial stat for
Shocking,
him. Yeah,
maybe we might say.
yeah, because if he continues that, like we had some concerns about his free throw shooting even in the preseason. So if he's able to find a way to get to the line, which we know he should, because most of his offensive opportunities are going to come at or right around the hoop, he needs to be able to convert on those. So he's been great. I mean, a lot of the offensive side is like a work in progress still, and there are some things we can certainly talk about and maybe even like nitpick a little bit. But Asar has been awesome. I think this like leap that everyone has been expecting is pretty real. That only 3 games in, so a lot of that to be told. But yeah, he's looked awesome through the first few games of the season, and is a big reason that they were able to win their last 2 games after that dud in the opener in Chicago.
And I particularly loved how he got his shot attempts here against the Celtics. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yes, he was still initiating quite a bit of offense, but it wasn't like, there was just repeating high pick and roll Ausar, high pick and roll Ausar, or anything like that. He was cutting hard. He did a ton off rebounds, 5 offensive rebounds for Ausar Thompson. That's second on the team behind Jalen Duren, who had 7. He's attacking the glass really well. I liked him out in transition. He made a few really smart cuts on Cade Cunningham drives with how much attention Boston was sending Cade's way here this afternoon. So I just think it's smart out of him to be a little bit more opportunistic today, where in the first 2 games it felt like maybe he was forcing just a little bit. Not quite forcing. That's not the right word. He was being aggressive, and you want him to be aggressive, but he was being aggressive in a creator sort of manner. Where in this case he was hunting out his opportunities to find something, which I know sounds very similar, but in my head it's different. So that's what I'm gonna roll with, and hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I loved what we saw from him today. And look, I know friends don't let friends use single game plus minus, but plus 15 for Ausar Thompson and
I mean, it's by far
matched
the
the eye
best. Like
test.
it's
Yeah.
double than the second highest, which is Tobias Harris at +7. So yeah, I don't like looking too much into that, but I think it's worthy to call it out specifically.
Well, especially when it matches the eye test
Yeah.
so dang much like it did here against the Celtics. So, all right, before we get into some questions, and guys, if you are tuning in live with us, one, send in your questions there into the live chat. We're going to get to as many as we can. And then 2, hey, if you're here right after this show wraps up, we're going to be recording the Pistons Pulse over on YouTube as well. So, obviously, if you're listening on podcast, tune into that anyway. But if you're here live with us now, just keep the good vibes going, right? Let's just fill our evenings here with some Pistons basketball after a great win against the Celtics. But what I wanted to ask you here, Blake, was just what are some, maybe like 1 or 2 trends that you've seen through these 3 games that you're looking to see if they're real here over maybe the next week of basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I don't it's not this isn't really a trend because it's been up and down over these first few games, but I'm just really interested to see where this team lands as a unit as 3-point shooters, because their first game just shooting under 30% from 3 as a team. Their second game in Houston, they make 16 threes, shoot 41% from 3. And then today against Boston, they go 9 for 34 from 3. That's 26.5%, but they find a way to win the game still. And we didn't even mention that Jaylen Brown scored 41 points. So they overcame that as well, in addition to what Peyton Pritchard did. So I'm just interested to see where the 3-point volume and efficiency will come from. We've seen Isaiah Stewart contribute already, but he's just taking like a few threes a game. We've seen Duncan Robinson get up a bunch of shots. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. And it's just Malik Beasley was like such a great signing last year. You signed him on a 1-year deal, and he gets up there to is almost near the league lead in 3-pointers, and that's a huge asset, obviously. I'm still hopeful that maybe Duncan Robinson can maybe not be what Malik Beasley was, but at least take up a good chunk of that volume and hopefully makes. But it'll take him some time. So I'm interested to see like if he's going to turn into that, and overall, like will how will Tobias shoot from three? Will Cade take an additional step as a 3-point shooter? Like what will Ivy be when he gets back? Because the up and down from distance, I feel like will be tough to sustain. They were able to do it today, which is impressive, and you're going to have to figure out ways to do that when you have Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson, and Ron Holland still like figuring it out from three on your team. But we know like you got to keep up from three to be able to win in this league. So I'm interested to see what it looks like this year because I feel like it's going to be pretty vastly different from last year.
Well, and that's kind of what we had talked about a little bit going into the season, right? I mean, it's not that the spacing is horrible for this team. It's just that it has maybe taken a little bit of a step back, and that's solely because when you look at this roster, there's really only one gunner. And last year they had two, right? Not only is Duncan Robinson trying to replace a bit of Malik Beasley, but also some of that Tim Hardaway Jr. volume. And you figure that's going to come from other guys as well. And you want Cade to take a step. We're hoping to see Ivy continue on the positive progression we saw from him out of the first half last season. Maybe Ron Holland takes a step. He was 0 for 4 to this afternoon from three, but I think the first two games looked a little bit more promising than that. So it's not like it's a lost cause, right? But it is going to be interesting to see how they adjust to not having maybe that outlet kind of player that Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley both were. They've got one of those guys. They just don't have two anymore when you're really looking for a kick out. I think, for me, it's similar, pretty related, actually, the two trends that I have in mind. And the first one's just, holy cow, is Cade getting a lot of attention. I mean, all three of these teams have thrown the kitchen sink at him, and I don't think it's all that surprising that his field goal percentage doesn't look fantastic. They're blitzing him on every screen. Houston in particular was really creative with some of the off-ball stuff they were doing when trapping or blitzing Cade out of a ball screen. And I am wondering if we're going to continue to see that. How do the Pistons start to counter it? Because they're going to have to figure something out. Is it just going to be a situation of we're going to try to get Cade with as many floor spacers out on the floor at the same time? Is it a situation where maybe we're trying to work some off-ball actions more so than just pure space out, high pick and roll with maybe one, lifted screen from the corner or something? It's kind of a token action that they've done in the past. Like, I don't know what exactly the fix is, but they're going to have to figure out something here. I don't think Cade going 8 of 18 and he wasn't like 8 of 24 in game one. Like that's not sustainable for him. And it's not really his fault either. I mean, just count them, guys. How many layups in the first half here against the Celtics did Cade really get? It's just hard for him to get to the rim right now. So I think they're going to have to figure something out.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why the Jaden Ivey injury is such a bummer, and hopefully he's not out for too long and he's back as soon as possible. But I think when he's back, and if he is in the starting lineup, whether that happens immediately or give him some time to ramp up, I think it'll just help Cade because you have an extra guy who can create on his own a little bit, get to the hoop, and beat a lot of guys on the first step. So if Cade gets the double team, and hopefully Ivy can take advantage of that somehow, because it is like, honestly, it has seemed a lot of the time like Cade is out there and the rest of the guys like just, I don't want to say can't dribble, but there's just like not a lot of creators out there on the floor around him. And that's what makes it hard. And I think as a team, they've weathered it pretty well. And Cade's been able to get his own, even with the defense that has been sending at him. But yeah, I feel like it's somewhat expected and we saw it last year, and we're just going to continue to see it with him. So yeah, it's just about getting around it. And I think if you do, like, when Ivy comes back, or if Ron Holland continues to prove in that way and plays alongside Cade a little more, like, that will only help just guys who can dribble, pass, shoot around him.
All right, last thing I want to throw your way here before we get into questions, but am I wrong for saying the three, I'll expand it. The four best players through 3 games on this Pistons team have been Cade Cunningham, Ausar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and Tobias Harris, and I'd say in that order. Is that fair?
I think so. The big performance from Jalen Duren today makes that a little hard. But yeah, and I think you can go at it a bunch of different ways. Like, Ron Holland has been good at certain times too, and I thought he was one of the guys alongside Isaiah Stewart who really changed the energy in the game against the Celtics today. But yeah, Tobias, I mean, he hasn't been super like flashy other than today. I guess today was his best scoring game of the early season so far. But I think he's just still been the guy that you can go back and lean on. And I'm all with you with Stewart. I think he's just been incredible for the first few games. And I mean, shoot, like, Paul Reed deserves some credit too. Like, if Paul Reed was out there today against the Celtics or in the opener, like, he could have a case for that too. So I think a lot of guys have stepped up in different ways at different times too. But I think that's definitely a fair assessment.
No, so the reason I was asking was just because we can focus it a little more to just 3, like Cade, Ausar, and Stu, and I just wanted to throw Harris in there as well because he's been so consistent. But like,
yeah,
I feel like we've not seen that group specifically on the court a ton together. If that continues, even like that group of 3, Cade, Ausar, Stu, if those 3 guys continue to be among the most impactful players on this team, I would really like to start seeing the 3 of them out there more together for longer minutes. I'm not saying you got to start Stu or anything crazy like that, but like, maybe Stu needs to be in the closing lineup more.
Yeah.
Maybe you make that split a little bit more even. Maybe you have Stu play some backup power forward. Like I said earlier, I'm not picky on exactly how it happens, but those 3 guys have been really the drivers of success here through these first 3 games. And you could throw Ron in there as well as that spark plug off the bench. So like, let's get more of them, right? If they keep this up, I mean, you got to give it probably like 10 games, right, before you could really know for sure. But early on, if this continues the way that it has been, I'm all for it. Get that trio and maybe Tobias Harris as well. Get them some minutes together more often. I also think, in particular, offense looks a little easier for Cade to come by when Stu's out there rather than Duren. And that's not a product of Duren's, lack of shooting or anything in particular, more just the way that teams have been blitzing Cade. It's harder to do that with a 5-out offense rather than a 4-out, 1-in that you got to play with JD. So nothing against or for either player. It's just kind of a different skill set. One of the ways you could alleviate some of that blitzing pressure that Cade's been seeing is just play him with a space big instead of a roller and force teams to adjust to that. And then you could go back to the normal. So, nothing permanent there, but I'd like to see more Stu, Ausar, and Cade. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and am I mistaken that I think it was the opener, Stewart was out there with Cade, Ausar, and Duren? Like, he played alongside Duren for a bit.
Game 2, I thought. I don't think he did it against the Bulls. I think they went to it against the Rockets, and then they definitely went to it again for a couple minutes here against the Celtics. Game 1 had the Cade, Holland, Ausar, Harris, Stu lineup that really collapsed the lead there down the stretch. And then JB went away from it, and they end up losing the game. Not that group would have won the game, but they got them there, right? So I don't think we've seen that group of 5 since either, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, I guess the main reason I bring that up is, like, I wouldn't have thought like if you want to see Cade play alongside Stewart more, I wouldn't have thought it would have been with Duren out there too. But it seems like JB is experimenting with that a bit. And like what Mims brought up in the chat earlier about having a competent front court off the bench, like that only helps him do that. And I'm not necessarily saying that like you should have a Sar, Stu, and Duren out there at the same time all the time, because Stu, excuse me, Stu has looked good from three, but he's not putting up a ton of shots. I mean, the ones he has, he's made and connected on at a really good rate. But I think that could make things harder for Cade a bit. But it is interesting to see Stu used in a way that's like, okay, he's probably not going to start. I think he's going to be the first man off the bench alongside Ron Holland for this team pretty significantly. When Ivy comes back, that could change how Duncan is used and what have you. But in general, I think, yeah, you're going to see Stu get mixed in like a little bit earlier, a little bit later. And yeah, I really think today against the Celtics, like he would have saw more time if Duren wasn't like going crazy there at the end. And I really think JB just kept him on the bench a bit in case Duren ended up picking up a foul or two here and there down the stretch.
Yeah, this is one of those good problems to have, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got a guy who's a little bit position versatile off your bench that, through a couple of games looks like maybe he's going to really push the coach and force his hand to get him more minutes. And, you don't care exactly how that happens. It's a good thing. So you just figure it out, right? The guy's earning more minutes. So let's see how many more you could get him. It's going to be a fun one, I think, to watch here as the season continues to progress. So let's get over to some questions. Let's look first to Mimsy313 from our live audience. It says, could Ausar Thompson be a Jaden Ivey replacement? I mean, we're kind of seeing him used in a similar role here, right? We're even getting legitimate point Ausar minutes where he's the only real ball handler or initiator out there. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough question, which is why it's a good question, just because they are obviously different players. And I think Ausar, more of his value is defensively, where Ivey's obviously offensively. I think if you traded Ivy, for example, it would probably be to get a bigger name. Like that would probably be one of the pieces the Pistons would have to part with if they wanted to do that. But I think you would need a secondary scorer next to Cade as well as Ausar, because I'm just not sure he'll get to that, which isn't a bad thing. And like, I could very well be wrong. He scored 21 points today and he's making things happen a little bit more creatively in terms of like how teams play him, and frankly, just like let him shoot and aren't afraid to have him do that. But yeah, I just think like you have to have a guy who can score at all three levels. And like Ausar is never going to be that, as much as I love him. But I still think like if he was a number three, like that's a great number three. I just would think that in theory, at least in my mind, Ivy is like that number two guy for the team, at least scoring wise right now. And if he goes or things just don't work out and he keeps getting injured and everything, I would think that this team would need to bring in a secondary scorer, because I don't think you're going to get 20 points a night from Ausar every night, to be fully honest.
I think the way that you set that up is actually really interesting for this question in particular, because like Jaden Ivey has yet to prove he's that guy. I think we both think that he is, and a lot of us do, right? A lot of us are fans of Jaden Ivey and think that he's going to be a really good player, but he's not yet established himself in that truly number two offensive option range yet. That remains to be seen. If he could do that this year, then fantastic. And then I'm sure you're looking at contract extensions and we can have all of those conversations as well. But it's interesting that Mimsy313 is asking the question of Ausar maybe replacing Ivy, because I think it's much more attainable if it's replacing the Ivy we've seen the past couple of seasons instead of the Ivy that we were hoping to see as he's kind of gotten his sea legs back under him and we've progressed through the year, because we've not seen him be that 20 point a night scorer. We've seen him be 17 and a half. And it's much more reasonable to say, hey, maybe Ausar Thompson, if he's really being aggressive with his shot, if we're, through these first 3 games, kind of what we've seen, especially against the Celtics, maybe that game in particular, the way that he was hunting his own shot is more consistent. Maybe 15 points is a little bit more attainable than we had thought coming into the season. And if that's the case, is a 2.5 point per game decrease worth the improvement defensively, I should say? Probably, right? Like this is a much closer conversation, I think, than I would have guessed even 3 games ago, right? We're only 3 games into the season, and Ausar's shown a little bit more as a scoring option than I thought he actually ever really could. So that's been really exciting, and I just think this makes it more of a conversation than maybe we would have guessed it would have been early on in the year, or before the season started, I should say.
Yeah, and I think like I'm thinking to, and I know our guy Caleb's in the chat, so I'm thinking of the Nuggets and how they obviously have Jokic and Jamal Murray when he's healthy, and then there's Aaron Gordon. Like I almost see Ausar in that Aaron Gordon role. I mean, they are.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
they're like similar players, but like we saw Aaron Gordon go off for like 40 points or whatever it was the other night, and Aaron Gordon's a much better shooter than Ausar ever will be, but like just to have a guy like that who can give you 25-30 when you're not expecting it really changes games, and that's what I see Ausar as bringing offensively. And I mean, hopefully he does still give you like somewhere in the 15 to 18 point range a night. But overall, I think obviously you have Cade, and then I just think that you're going to need another guy who that you can go to get buckets and hopefully be that like 20 point a night guy, whether it's Jaden Ivey or someone that's not on the roster right now.
I think that we are maybe 1 week away from talking about Ron Holland as being closer to that second scoring option than we ever would have thought. Because, oh man, he's been so exciting here through the first 3 games. But that's just, me editorializing a little bit. Let's stick with Ausar Thompson for a second. So Pistons fan 11 says, did you see Ausar's handle, passing, and rebounding flashes in this Celtics game? So we've talked a lot about Ausar Thompson maybe not being perfectly suited to be that lead initiator, and a lot of that had to do with the live dribble, right? His ball handling ability. So what have we seen here from Ausar as a playmaker through these first 3 games?
Yeah, I think he's been like handle wise, I think it's looked a little bit better. I mean, I don't think it's anything close to perfect. I think it's something that you're going to see develop, but he's been able to take everything he does defensively and turn it into quick offense and get the team running. And he's sometimes been just the guy catching the lob or the guy throwing the lob, which I think is just awesome to have a guy who can do both of those things in transition. And I think eventually Ron Holland will be able to do that too. And we saw Ausar's quarterback pass up to Ron Holland for that dunk today against the Celtics, which was an awesome play. So I definitely think you've seen it in flashes there. And yeah, he grabbed like 12 rebounds against the Celtics too, which was huge, especially when you consider the fact that Jalen Duren had like 17 or whatever it was. So just like a huge night on the glass for him, and just overall at really every level. I think he had like 3 assists, so nothing crazy, but the plays that he did made were really good plays. And I think a lot of it is just taking advantage of how good he is as a defender, getting the team out running, especially when he's playing alongside Ron Holland. Like that's just super fun and everything. So I think you've seen the flashes there, like a lot of a way to go, and definitely like his ability in reaching the ceiling as with his handle and as a playmaker. But I think you've definitely seen some improvements so far. Again, through only 3 games.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because to me, point Ausar has looked very much like it looked in the preseason, which is to say, not great. However, I think he's made strides offensively that really didn't show up in the preseason that are only starting to pop right now, and that's kind of what you were talking about, referencing the Aaron Gordon thing a little bit. Like, he's playing off Cade really, really well. I've thought he's been extremely aggressive on the boards, especially offensively, and that's been fantastic. He's been really aggressive in getting himself out in transition and trying to score and look for his own shot in those situations. So I think he's been better offensively than I would have expected, and that's been really exciting to see. But I want to focus more on the rebounding, because if Ausar Thompson's going to push near 10 a night, not over, but maybe like 8 rebounds per game, if he can have more outings like he did against the Celtics than not, I think that in particular is really going to open up not only some running opportunities for him, but like you said, for others, since he is such a good playmaker in the fast break. So I've been really excited about what we've seen from Ausar Thompson so far. And yeah, hopefully he can keep it up, right? Any final thoughts there on Ausar?
I mean, what you mentioned about the rebounding, just like how much of an athlete he is, how high he can jump. Like
That one
today,
in the fourth quarter where he jumped over 2 Celtics, grabbed it one hand
yeah,
with almost his elbow and just like came down with it. That was
yeah.
insane. Awesome defensive rebound.
Yeah, and like I think I noticed maybe a couple of his rebounds today. He kind of like jumped over Isaiah Stewart, or like just got his hand up there. And Stu's a great rebounder himself too, but we all know he might be the biggest guy in the room, but he's not the tallest guy. So like when we're playing it against a team that has more length than us, Asar being able to do that and like get over Cade and Chris Boucher or whoever it was on the Celtics, like definitely helps out.
All right, let's go to this question here from Mimsy313 again. Then we'll get to some pre-submitted ones. How do you think JB Bickerstaff has done coaching through these first 3 games?
Ooh, I mean, I don't really think I have any complaints, honestly. And I mean, shout out to Bickerstaff for picking up his 300th win the other day against the Rockets, which I think the stat was like him and his dad are the only father son duo to each have 300 wins. So that's a pretty cool accomplishment. But yeah, I think the first game, the one loss that the Pistons have so far, I think was just a dud. Like they came out flat. The Bulls were making a lot of shots. The Pistons shot under 30% from 3. The Bulls ended like 36% from 3, and they started off really hot initially. And I think JB made some adjustments down there. Like you mentioned that lineup, Wes, with like Asar and Ron and Stu that got the Pistons back in the game, and they beat the Bulls by 11 points in the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to overcome the early hole they dug themselves into, but I thought a lot of that was just the shots weren't going down. Like Duncan Robinson was 0 for 5 from 3, 1 for 7 from the field. That was Cade's 8 for 24 night, which was a credit to the Bulls defense for how they played him and everything and limited his ability. But I'm sort of chalking that one up to first game adjustments, new roster. Jaden Ivey's out. He hasn't played in a little bit, but you expected him to be in the lineup until late in the offseason. And I thought JB did a good job of getting the most out of his lineup to just get back in that game. And even today in the win over the Celtics, like when he brings in Stu and Holland initially, that really changed the game. The Pistons did get themselves into another big hole, but they were able to overcome that by how he asserted those lineups. Like I haven't really questioned like a timeout or challenge or anything yet. So I just have no complaints. And I think I think he knows how to use his roster, which like he did in Cleveland too. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and I think it's also just like way too early to really Monday morning quarterback JB. At least, through these first 3 games, he's figuring out what his team can and can't do well either. So like, I saw someone in the chat earlier mention like Cade's getting playoff defenses here to start the season. Yeah, he is. And so OG unnamed YouTube user, nice, the original one. He says that JB needs to do something to help Cade out when they blitz him with 2 or 3 guys in the pick and roll. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they will. I'm not sure that they really expected to see playoff defenses being thrown at Cade in the season opening games here in October. Like that's a bit of a shock, right? So let's give them some time. I think they're going to need to figure that out. JB has shown a aptitude of being able to solve some stuff like that in the past. So no reason to think that he won't now. They need to go to the drawing board a little bit, and I'm sure that they will. But let's talk here about those slow starts. So this is Ramester. I think it's Rames, but maybe had to get a new username there. But I don't know for sure. In the DBB comments, says we see slow starts all the time in the NBA when there are new players added, and chemistry can take some time here to develop. But is that what we've seen in Game 1 and then subsequently Game 3 as well? Or is there something more going on?
I think it's like, I think there might be a little bit of both. There is a new roster. You have some key departures that, and you also have some, like one specifically key injury that you're dealing with. And then Karis LeVert misses 2 games when you expected to have him. I think a little bit of it is a chemistry thing, but I think a lot of it also is like you mentioned with the foul trouble and just getting into early holes. Like I think, and I mean, this just isn't just Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, but I think even going back further to like other Pistons big men in recent memory, like it's been a struggle to keep themselves in games. And I think like Jalen Duren got into early foul trouble in the Bulls game, in the first game, and then again against like the Celtics, but he was able to overcome that, have a massive game, and just end the night with 4 fouls, even though he picked up his 4th early in the third quarter. So I think that's been it a little bit, like getting thrown off immediately, like getting hit in the mouth, and then you also have a player or players that are in early foul trouble, and it's like, what do you do here? We didn't expect this to happen. And I think Cade a little bit too. Like we've seen Cade as a player just have some slow starts, and then he comes out crazy in the second half, which has happened a little bit so far this year. But I'd say like overall that got better in year 2, or I'm sorry, last year. And then I haven't really noticed it as much so far this year, even though it's still super early. But I think that's just, it might be like his makeup as a player a little bit, even though I think it has gotten better. And I think when you just bring all those things together, like it could result in those early holes. But I don't know. I think like it's definitely a big lesson that this team can take away from their first few games. And I just, it's super frustrating to see someone take themselves out of the game really early. And I think you just have to figure out how to avoid that, which you can definitely do it. I mean, it's tough when you're a big man, but I think it's something that can be fixed. So I'm not like super worried about it.
I think, that's kind of the thing with everything that's been going wrong here in those 2 first quarters against the Bulls and then against the Celtics is like, it's not fixable, right? We know it's fixable. Both games, they actually fixed it later on.
Mm-hmm.
As the game actually progressed with the Bulls, it was a little bit too late. Here with the Celtics, they kind of had it under control there. About midway through the second quarter, the tide started to really shift back into the Pistons' favor. Like I'm with you. I think that injury to Ivy is particularly impactful here because Ivy was all through training camp, all through the preseason, your starting 2 guard. and then you come into the regular season game one, and they have to change that. So you're already dealing with trying to get guys acclimated to one another because you do have some new rotation players, and then now you upset the chemistry you had been developing there with Ivy in that starting lineup. So I think that's part of it. And then the other parts are teams blitzing aggressively, Cade Cunningham on any pick and roll action. And then at the same time, a lot of teams have been, this was true of the Rockets as well, kind of just ignoring Ausar Thompson for stretches when he's out on the perimeter, and that's clogging up the paint as well. So I think you got those things going on offensively. YouTube user there in the chat's bringing up Duncan Robinson being a bit of a step down defensively. I think that's been a part of this as well. So you've kind of got a little bit of the spacing issue that continues to pop up when you've got Ausar and Duren out on the floor together. You're pairing that offensive challenge with a little bit of a defensive challenge with Duncan Robinson and then Jalen Duren as well, navigating out there together with low levels of chemistry because Duncan Robinson just comes in. Cade's turning the ball over a lot because of the defenses he's facing. Like, it's just kind of one of those comedy of errors, right? Comedy of bad things that are being thrown right at the Pistons right out of the gates, and they've just not adjusted to it yet. So, kind of there's something more going on, right? But it's not like it's not fixable. They've been able to adjust mid-game. They just need to have a better, not necessarily a better plan, maybe just a better expectation, right? Coming in to tip off to not be thrown off by that. It shouldn't be a curveball now after they've seen it for 3 games in a row.
Yeah, and like chemistry is one of those things that's always so hard to like quantitate. Like we kept talking about how good like the Pistons vibes were last year, and like yes, that's like they definitely were because we saw it, but if you're just watching the Pistons like on their national TV games, you might not know that. So I think it's one of those things that's just super hard to tell, like on both sides of it, at least when you're watching on TV or even at the game. So overall, I think it'll just take some time, and I think there might be some ups and downs, especially as Ivy comes back from injury. JB figures out how he's going to use like Harris when he's back, how the starting lineup's going to change when Ivy's back, so on and so forth. So I think overall, like it is a little bit of that, but it also a big part of it is just how the roster is set up, and teams can take advantage of like Ausar and Duren being out there together to start games. And we saw what Nikola Vucevic did in the first game. So you could see that a bit, and I think it's just about how they adjust and how they get better at counteracting it.
All right, let's go over to our guy, a fella who left us a fun voicemail question.
Hey, it is not Fat Albert. This is a fella from the DBB Comments, and I wanted to ask you both, what has been your favorite Pistons play from the game so far? All right. See y'all.
All right. Fun question there. Favorite play so far that the Pistons have drawn up and run? I've got mine ready to go if you need a second play, because I apologize for springing the question on you. So
no.
Is that all good? Should I go, or do you got one off the top?
You can go. I have a different one than you.
All right.
You can go.
All right. My favorite play was one that didn't even work. I just thought it was really creative and executed really well at a time that caught the Rockets off guard, and then it just kind of I think it might have been Amen. Someone on the Rockets made a really great play to kind of break it up at the very last second. But against the Rockets, Cade Cunningham goes into a DHO action with Jalen Duren. So Duren hands off the ball. As you've seen it a million times, he runs over to the opposite wing. Still looks like he's about to set a screen for a curling Duncan Robinson, but instead he kind of slips the screen. Robinson kind of plays a little bit of interference, and Duren crashes down on the wide open weak side for a lob, and if not for a very timely hand and maybe a little bit of a hip check from a Rockets player. That is a really fun, highlight-worthy alley-oop. And I just love those creative alley-oop plays, especially when they work really well. Like, honestly, I thought that there should have been a foul called on that one, and there wasn't. And that, it is what it is, no big deal. But when they work, it's a lot of fun. So even though they didn't finish the play, I thought that was a great little design from JB.
Like the alley-oop play from Summer League, that was like the first Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren play. That's a good one. I'm gonna go recency bias, and it's not really like a creative play or anything, but I just thought the Ron Holland steal to Ausar and Ausar quarterback pass up to Ron Holland today against the Celtics was such an awesome and exciting play, and just really encapsulated the whole seeing those two playing next to each other some more, and the whole 9-to-5 thing. Like, that was literally it. And Ron Holland has just been super impressive over the first few games, and I think that was the most exciting dunk that he had. It was right at the end of the third quarter, and just got a bunch of energy in the stadium for the home opener, which always helps the team pull it out. So not like a set play or anything, but I think that just showcased a theory that we all had, that we know the team had, and just seeing it in action, which is super exciting.
The length and athleticism it takes to catch a ball above the 3-point line, not dribble and dunk it without traveling. I mean, that was a legit catch 1-2 up from Ron. That was
And he caught it like over his shoulder with his arms extended too, which I don't know.
Good thing Jahmyr Gibbs was in attendance. Hopefully a couple of the wide receivers for the Lions also saw that. I mean, Ron was really flashing maybe some tight end skill on National Tight Ends Day. Maybe the Lions got to give him a call. All right, let's go to this question here from Pistons fan 11. It says we have to have more help with the ball handling and spacing on the floor from three. So how do we feel about Marcus Sasser, Ivy, and LeVert and their ability to provide that? LeVert is more athletic than he looked, right, due to the hamstring injury. That's referencing he tweaked his hamstring or something there against the Bulls. He's been out the 2 games following that. So we could probably just say yes to that one. So let's talk about the spacing that those 3 guys could theoretically provide. Is that our solution here, having LeVert and then hopefully very soon Ivy get healthy as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Trajan Langdon's plan was with the offseason. I think it was maybe see how far that can get you with like Ivy and LeVert specifically. And then you have Sasser to go to on the bench if you need to. And also Dennis Jenkins, we've seen him a bit, and see what he will be if he has a specific long-term role on this team. But I think the plan was to go with Ivy, LeVert as your backup ball handlers and creators. And obviously you have Duncan Robinson for spacing. Hopefully Ron improves. Stu is shooting more. But I think the plan was just go with that. And then if it's not working out at the deadline, go and get a true backup point guard, sort of similar to what they did last year with Dennis Schroeder, just another player. And then go from there if you really need help. I mean, I think we've seen them stay afloat at times, like so far, and that's without Ivy and mostly LeVert, and we haven't seen Sasser. So like maybe Dennis Jenkins can help in terms of the interim without Ivy and LeVert. And then hopefully once they're both back, we'll see how it looks from there. And if it really doesn't work, just go and make a trade or make a signing.
The only thing I'd add is with the ball handling aspect of this, and specifically, as someone who's skeptical of Ausar Thompson really being like that point guard role, I am absolutely comfortable here early on in the season riding that out and maybe giving Ron Holland a couple of those reps as well, just to see what you got in those guys. I mean, remember the Pistons are not contending for a championship this season. So even though I'm a little bit skeptical of Ausar like really being a lead initiator type even in short bursts of minutes there, even though I'm skeptical of Ron Holland as well, I think both of them have flashed enough ability to play make for others in the case of Ausar, and then play make for themselves in the case of Ron Holland, that I say you ride it out and you kind of see what you got with those guys. And when Ivy's back, this really is a non-issue. And as well, LeVert, I don't think we'd be seeing Dennis Jenkins as much as we have through these past 2 games if LeVert is healthy. That seems like really a one-to-one sort of a replacement there that JB did. So other than that, I'm right there with you. So let's go. Let's do another one here. This is from Rozhead in the DBB comments. We'll go rapid fire through these last few just to make sure we get them in before we wrap up today. But how are we going to score when Cade and Toby sit? Can a lineup of LeVert, Green, Holland, Thompson, and Stewart work? And would Ivy solve this entire problem? That is Rozhead from the DBB comments.
He might. I mean, I think it's hard to find a ton of offense when like your clear number 1 player is off the floor. And we just talked about like, is Ivy the number 2? Will he grow into that? We don't know that for sure yet. So that's really the swing factor here. I mean, I think you could string some offense together, but with like the foursome of like Green, Holland, Thompson, and Stewart, defensively, I'm very intrigued, but it's like, what are you going to get on offense? And I think Javonte Green has been really good so far. And obviously we haven't seen a ton of Karis LeVert. So I think Ivy will solve a lot of it. But again, it's not the best scoring bench unit I've ever seen, definitely.
Yeah, right there with you. I've liked a lot of what Green has done. I hope that as they kind of move forward into the season here, maybe JB just like embraces the fact that this team has 1,000,000 6'6", 6'7" wings and just rolls with as many of them as he can. Whoever's hot, right? Give Green minutes when his shot's falling and he's making defensive plays. If not, start to look to maybe run Holland a little bit more, right? Like that's what he did against the Celtics here. Holland was a little bit cold from the floor. We saw more of Javonte Green. I thought that was nice, right? So that's all good stuff. Let's go to Baked Over-ish. Is this team better when Jaden Ivey's playing?
I think so. Like I don't know, I guess how they wouldn't be with a guy who scored like 17, 18 points per game and is the athlete he is, can beat a lot of defenders with his first step and is just that incredible athlete. So it's unfortunate that we haven't seen him in so long, and we were expecting him back for the start of the season, and then something else like unrelated, but maybe related. I think it's kind of mainly unrelated thing happens. But hopefully it's not long-term and we can see how it happens. But I think Jaden Ivey is like only a huge positive for this team, especially with some of like the errors and slow start stuff that we've been talking about already.
Yeah, just someone that you could turn to in the starting lineup that if a team is going to blitz the crap out of Cade, like we've seen through 3 games, you can just have him start to initiate and it'll be positive more times than not. So I think that's what Jaden Ivey brings. And it's really a major counter to probably the biggest strategic concern, right, that you've seen out of 3 games. The fact that the Pistons really haven't been able to punish like the Houston Rockets when they slanted all 5 guys to the strong side of the court when Cade's taken a pick and roll off on the wing. Like you shouldn't be able to do that. So the fact they weren't able to really punish it consistently, a little bit worrying. And Jaden Ivey, I do think, fixes that. Let's look at, this is a fun one. Tony Buckets. I think this is more to you, honestly, than it is me, because it really hasn't impacted me at all. But has sports betting affected your work at all? Has it changed how you look at the game or talk about the game?
Me personally, no, because like I don't really, I like the writing I do never really involves sports betting unless it's like a big story where sports betting impacts sports, like Malik Beasley or the Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier news that just happened. But yeah, I don't personally like, I'm not a gambling guy, so it hasn't changed a ton for me. Like, I know it's out there. I don't know how you couldn't, because every other ad on the court and in like commercial break is for some sort of sports gambling company. I think the league has a lot to figure out in terms of like if there are any additional regulations that need to be put on, and whatever the mess that's going on right now, like how you figure that out so you don't mess with the integrity of the game. And I think clearly there have been some like bad apples, and not saying like Chauncey and Rozier are those. And I know Chauncey's is mostly related to outside sports. So we'll see what happens there. It's all like alleged right now. But yeah, in general, like I'd say it has had to change it to a degree just because of how much every big sports league is like invested or partnered with sports gambling companies. But in general, as like a fan and a writer, I'd say it's impacted me in limited ways, only if it impacts the massive, like, or like the main news cycle, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and because I really don't write too much on the NBA, it's impacted me even less. Like I'm right there with you as a fan, how I watch the game or how you and I talk about the game here on the podcast, no impact. I don't gamble either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not all that comfortable with losing money, so I don't want to take a risk.
Oh yeah,
That's
I
my
don't want to do
philosophy
that
with
either.
it. So like I just stay away from it, and I know it's changing how people watch the game, and in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. I don't have anything to say about that one way or another. I just know I watch the game the same way, and now there's maybe a little bit more FanDuel ads than I ever had to ingest before.
And
Whatever.
the
Who
TV
cares?
network that you're watching it on is
Yeah, exactly.
FanDuel.
I do mourn the loss of We Are Fox Sports, We Are Detroit popping up on
Yeah.
right
Oh
before the
man,
start of the game. But that's the dumb stuff. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
how
All
quickly
right.
things change.
Couple more, just super quick. Do you think Karis LeVert could start over Duncan Robinson, and would that be a better fit? That is Just Football Academy in Australia.
I think he could, but I think Duncan's obviously the preferred option right now. We'll see what Karras is like when he's back from the hamstring, but it seems like you want Karras to help with some of those like on-ball reps in the second unit a little bit more so than Duncan probably can, especially when Jaden Ivey's not here. So I think we'll see Duncan in the starting lineup over Karras, and probably even maybe both of them off the bench when Ivey comes back.
All right, let's look at another fun one here. This is Hunt Baker. Oh, these are okay. Yeah, we definitely got to get to these, and then we'll close it out. Hunt Baker, and two questions for last week that we didn't get to. So, just how much will the Pistons turn to Isaiah Stewart? Will he be a bench guy, or will he be a key contributor to both units? Do you see him getting 28 minutes per game?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's a key contributor to both units, and just like obviously he's coming off the bench, but using him in whatever lineups you need to. I think his high so far this year in terms of minutes is 25. So I think you'll see him around that like 25 mark, but we saw him play 21 minutes today. We'd both like to see him play more, but we'll see how it shakes out coming out. I think he'll definitely play more than the 19.9 or whatever it was that he had last season.
Sorry, I was just looking to see how many minutes per game he's averaged through these first three, because I didn't have it up. 21. Yep. Okay, so yeah, I would say 28 seems high, but hopefully closer to 28 than to 19. Let's just put it that way, right? More Isaiah Stewart minutes for me, please, JV Bickerstaff. I have loved what I've seen. love what we saw last year too. So I'm a big Stu fan. He's fun to watch. Last one. What is the biggest weakness of the team? Do we simply rely too much on Cade Cunningham? Is Jalen Duren not a top center? Do we have enough 3-point shooting? This is Hunt Baker. Again, a question from last week. So what's the biggest weakness, do you think, of this Pistons team? Now that we're 3 games in, we got a little bit more sample to really talk about with it.
Right now, I'd go back to like just the up and down of the 3-point shooting. And I know you're not going to shoot the lights out every night, but it seems like that's just going to be something to monitor for this team. And Duncan Robinson may come on and make that not really a question. And then similar with Karis LeVert comes back, maybe Ivy is a 40% guy like he was before he went down last year. So that might not be a question once we have a little more season under us. But right now, I'd say that's the biggest question for me.
For me, and I think we've actually seen this a little bit through the first 3 games, there are a lot of very specialized players on this roster. Somehow it feels like more so than last year, though I'm not actually sure if that's true. It might just be that I'm more aware of it now that we're going into year 2 of a lot of the returning players that the Pistons have. But outside of Cade and maybe Ausar Thompson, if he keeps playing the way that he has through 3 games, it's kind of difficult to construct a really good spacing lineup that's also really good defensively, and vice versa, right? It's kind of difficult to construct a lineup with a lot of ball handling creativity and also shooting. Right. Like it's hard to kind of pair those things together, which puts JB in an interesting spot when he's figuring out who is out there and who is not. And I do think it's been a little bit of a storyline with, just again, to go back to how teams are playing Cade Cunningham. They're able to do that because no one other than him is really a threat with the ball in their hands. Ausar Thompson is looking like maybe he can be a little bit more than that, but even to the extent that he can create, it's not really out of isolation, right? So you're able to throw sometimes 3 guys at Cade, and it's not going to do too much damage on the back end. And that's just a product of the players that the Pistons have, right? Like if you're trying to, maybe the best defensive lineup they can throw out there would be like Cade, Ron, Ausar, Harris, Stu. Maybe, right? Maybe LeVert instead of Harris, and you shift those guys up because LeVert's not a bad defender in his own right. But like that, you got 3 really good defenders there. Awesome. Cade's pretty neutral. And then you look at the floor spacing, and Stu's a plus. Cade's kind of a plus. I'll just say it's Harris. Harris is pretty neutral, and then Ron and Ausar really aren't spaces. It's just kind of hard to piece versatile lineups together in those specialties that teams really like to have. And so it's going to be, I think that's an interesting challenge to overcome. And to me, I'd say that's maybe the biggest, maybe not the biggest like weakness, right? But it's something to monitor over these next couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it might be like players we thought who were specialists that were with the team last year, like mainly Malik Beasley. We thought he was there for spacing. I thought even though he was an incredible 3-point shooter, he did a lot more than that. So maybe it's like Duncan is more of your catch and shoot guy, and then not getting much else. And yeah, we'll see how they try to work with that as we get more into the season.
All right, I think we are going to call it there. Guys, Omari and Sean Windsor, because we're going to have him on the Pistons Pulse as well. They both got caught up. Interviews ran really long. So, unfortunately, I am sorry, there will not be a Pistons Pulse episode recorded right after this. You guys will have to watch probably some ugly Packers football. I mean, that's no fun. We're letting you guys down.
Tonight, right?
Oh, yeah, there you go. Who's playing tonight? That'd be a better game to watch anyway.
There's a bunch of games going on right now. We're recording near 8 o'clock Eastern, and then the Lakers and Kings are playing tonight, as well as the Blazers and the Clippers. So a couple late night West Coast games.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're
maybe watch that instead of Aaron Rodgers playing football again, because Kirby Joseph picked him off, and we earned the right to not watch Aaron Rodgers on our screen in Detroit. So the Pistons Pulse will be on Tuesday evening. I believe will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time, but got to talk with the guys and I'll get that all scheduled up. So apologies everybody on that, but thank you for tuning in here to this episode, the 100th episode of the Pindown. And Blake, here's to 100 more.
Yeah. Cheers to 100. And also, I guess, bummer that the Pistons Pulse is delayed, but at least for you're not gonna sit staring at your screen for a few hours in a row, which is a good thing. But yeah, and shout out to everyone who joined us, whether you're new, whether you've been us from the start. We obviously really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without everyone here. And yeah, shout out to a fella for using the voice line again. Reminder that anyone can call that number, ask a question, hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball.